This video and all other videos on this channel for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and the vibe is weird at the moment, at least by my interpretation. So I wanted to kind of show you a bunch of things that I think are weird about the vibe at the moment in the market and get your opinion on it, right? Do you think it's a weird vibe at the moment? It almost feels to me a little bit bear market vibes at the moment. And the reason I say this is if we cast our minds back to here, we had Bitcoin making all-time high pre-halving. I think we had a good amount of retail in the space, a good amount of eyes in the space, good amount of interest. The social media metrics were showing that there was interest in crypto and in the space in general. And alts looked like they were going to stage a big pump, right? And there was going to be a big alt season going on in here. And then, of course, Bitcoin consolidated. Okay, it invalidates left translation by putting in a new high post-November of 24, which was the cutoff for left translation because that was the midpoint. But all through here, we lost interest. We lost that momentum. And whilst Bitcoin went on to make new highs, many of the altcoins, and I know a handful did pretty well, but many of them actually did the unthinkable and went to new bear market lows. Even Ethereum made it all the way back to like practically its bear market low into that April kind of time frame this year, and then it finally got moving. But I would say to you guys, the vibe back here was immaculate, okay? And today, it's absolutely not the case. I think here, toxicity is pretty high. There's a lot of finger pointing. We just liquidated 1.6 million traders for about $20 billion on World Mental Health Day. Retail is at all-time lows, or I should say bear market low levels, right? Many of these altcoins are basically never coming back. And finally, people have kind of managed expectations, or the market has managed their expectations for them. It's probably a better way to say it. And now they realize that they really do need quality, or they're starting to say things like, well, they were never going to pump that soon, right? We always had to wait for Bitcoin to top and then move into alt season, blah, blah, blah. Do you agree with this, right? Do you think back here, with hindsight, the vibes were good and interest was high and retail was here and alts were pumping versus today? I don't think really any of those things are true, to be completely honest with you. So let me know what you think about that. To me, it almost feels like we're in a bear market, and I guess for many altcoins, they really are. Bitcoin may already be in it, but we need to see a daily cycle and a weekly cycle low confirmed before we can make that assumption. And that brings me on to my next point, okay, which is simple and complex reads. There are times in the market where I need to have multiple counts and multiple ideas, and nobody likes that because of the uncertainty. But occasionally, that's what we have to do. Put a bunch of scenarios on the table and then just give it some time and start to invalidate them one by one until we're left with the truth. But at the moment, we don't have that. I make the case as a very, very, very simple read for us at the moment. So I'm going to share that with you now. And then the rest of these tabs is all going to be me pointing at things that I think are still very, very weird. Whether we have to roll over and make one final low to give us the daily and the weekly cycle into the end of the month, or whether the low is in already, I don't think it makes a difference, because ultimately we're still calling for a weekly cycle and a daily cycle to be confirmed pretty soon, and then for this weekly cycle to left translate. Now, herein lies the question. Does it A, move to all-time highs in left translation, okay, and give us a new all-time high to exit the market at before then it heads down for that 4-year cycle low in the following 2 weekly cycles? Or does it B, left translate by producing this kind of distribution type lackluster rollover, head down here, left translate and fail again to give us the 4-year cycle? Now, of course, I'm excluding the idea that there's a lengthened cycle or no more 4-year cycle or up only forever or any of that, right? I'm excluding that because I'm a cycle trader. This is my edge. I stick to my system. I don't need to deal with any of that other stuff because it's outside my parameters. Now, if you want to accept some other narrative, that's fine, right? But you know, this is my system, this is what I do. So I'm not just going to throw that out the window because there's some people online that think we're going to have a longer cycle or whatever. So for me, there's a very, very clear and binary read right now. The only real question is, does that left translated peak occur at new all-time highs, or does it occur in this kind of lackluster rollover, lower high? It could be a marginal higher high or even a double top with this level. Any of that would do, but no new price extreme, okay? In either case, I expect somewhere in the next 4 to 12 weeks to be taking profit on my Bitcoin position, selling spot for the first time this cycle since it was acquired publicly at the 4-year cycle lows, and moving on with my life, right? Moving on to better things until that upcoming 4-year cycle low shows up late next year. On a balanced probabilities as well, I should say this, I still lean on the fact that we are going to make new highs. And the reason I say that is because many of these crypto stocks are still blasting way, way, way higher. We did the same thing with the gold miners, right? In gold's kind of consolidation that happened before that recent breakout to new highs. Lots of people got bearish, and I was saying, no, look at the miners, they're leading to the upside. I think gold and silver are going to therefore push to new highs. And it worked that time. So I'm now saying the same thing about this. I'm saying the the crypto miners are moving higher, and that's probably because they're leading Bitcoin higher. Of course, it doesn't have to happen that way. It could easily be the red squiggle I drew for Bitcoin, where we just distribute at a lower high. But on a balanced probabilities, I say this is leading Bitcoin higher, just like the gold miners led gold and silver. Anyway, from here on out, it only really gets weirder. It's actually extremely difficult for me to put into words how unprecedented this current move is. This is the S&P 500. It has tripled off of the 2020 lows. And this to me is extremely weird as well. Okay, this is so weird that there's me and a handful of traders I know that are messaging each other every single day. Like, bro, have you seen the stock market? I can't believe it's doing this. I can't believe it's still going up, right? That's how insane this move is. And yet everywhere else I look, no one seems to care about this. No one seems to think this is out of the ordinary. In fact, people seem to be making excuses for this, which I also think is weird. People are like, put it in log. Well, why? I never use log charts, right? They go, put it in log. It's just a straight line. Isn't it just debasement? Well, yeah, there's a debasement component, right? Will this bubble actually pop if they keep printed money? Well, they don't even print money at all-time highs. They don't print money with overly restrictive interest rates, right? First, they have to wait for things to crash, then they slash the rates. When that fails, then they finally step in and print at the bottom. And even after they print, remember, anything you do to the MT rate of change shows up in the CPI with a lag. It takes like 12 to 18 months for it to even present as inflation, right? So given where the 4-year cycles are, late 2026, given that they're not going to print until late 2026, and we're most probably going to be in deflation by the middle of next year, it seems kind of crazy to try to explain this away. I saw people saying, oh, you need to price it in gold. Like, why do I need to price it in gold? What are you talking about? Like, I have the same strategy for every asset that I trade and that I deal with, right? Like, I don't have to start molding things just to kind of justify the fact that people that are showing up now are buying the top of a 43-year-old parabolic blow-off top. So I think that's weird as well. I think it's weird that people are trying to justify this being normal, when if you think about historical stock market performance, 6 to 10% a year would be considered pretty good. And here we are hitting a triple in 5 years. Okay, and for some reason, people are like, no, Camel, this is fine. This is not unprecedented. This is totally normal. Go back on the chart and tell me when we got performance like this out of the stock market, right? Like, this is ridiculous. And it's even more ridiculous to me that not many people realize how ridiculous it is. I also saw this and I thought this was absolutely spot on. The OGs of this channel, the Camel Crew that have been here for a long time, will know this. Remember like a year ago when we said we would get to Q4 2025 and the market would peak and the narrative would change. Everyone would think the cycles are over, up only forever. Well, it's that time. I'm selling in the next 4 to 8 weeks. Good luck. I think this is absolutely true, right? For a long time on this channel, we said by the time we get here to the finish point of the 4-year cycle, the narrative would shift. But you know what's weird? I did not expect it to shift with the ferocity that it has done. I would actually argue that this is PSYOP levels of narrative shift here. I was expecting there to be some resistance to this idea. I was expecting there to be a bunch of people still going, no, come on, it's never going to do that. Like, why would we bet against something that isn't yet invalidated? Why would we bet against something that has yet to be proven wrong? But instead, all I see is this like museum of stolen thoughts on Twitter. And by the way, I stole Museum of Stolen Thoughts, right? That's that's where we are. I'm stealing phrases whilst I'm accusing people of stealing things. And you know, the hubris is just at absolute peak levels. I've never seen it like this. I told my taxi driver I was in crypto and he said he was too. And then he advised me to sell everything because the 4-year cycle is over, right? These people that are mocking this and making jokes of it, they don't even know how to correctly define or measure the cycle. And then you go through the comments and everyone is again fully psyoped into thinking this narrative has shifted, even though we knew this thing would shift well over a year ago. I think it's very, very weird when you consider from a 4-year cycle perspective, okay, there's only 2 paths here, right? Both are left translation, both are out of a upcoming cycle low literally any day now, or that might already be in. And the only real question is, does it go to new highs one final time, or does it roll over to a slight lower high? Right? That's the only real question. Is it here or here? And yet every man and his dog is actually going to be a bag holder. Like I knew there'd be psyoping. I knew there would be narrative shift. I knew people would move the goalpost, but I was not ready for it on this scale. So I think that's another thing that's extraordinarily weird. Something else that's really weird, right? The Russell 2K needs to move into expansion for alt season, blah, blah, blah. Correlation is not causation. If it was, explain this correlation. IWM, small caps, right at the top, and gold. They've been 1-to-1 correlated pretty much since before November of last year. This is very, very weird. It's weird that gold has done like a 3 or 4x off of its 8-year cycle low. That's weird. And it's weird that people don't realize, right, that correlation is not causation. The Russell does what it wants, and it does so without any other asset caring. Breadth normally narrows into tops. Most people think it's the opposite because they've only been trading for a few years, or because they exclusively trade crypto. In crypto, it's kind of true that breadth widens, okay? You get like Bitcoin go first, and then it kind of spreads to Ethereum and the top 10 or whatever, and then historically that rotates into mid caps and then small caps and then memes and NFTs, and you get this kind of big broadening out into the speculative bubble blow off top moment. But what they don't realize, these people, either through inexperience or because they only trade crypto, is that is not at all what we observe in TradFi. In TradFi, it's the complete opposite. Breadth normally narrows into tops, which means that it is extremely weird that we are seeing widening into this current top, right? If you go back and look at historical tops, we do not see breadth widen out like this. So again, it's extremely weird. It's also extremely weird to me that some people are calling the Russell 2K breakout the start of a new business cycle. Like, yeah, bro, this is just the start. All of this is very, very weird to me. Maybe not to you guys, but I think we're in the final moment of the everything bubble. And I really think we're on very, very borrowed time here. And to kind of illustrate this further, okay, we are now starting to see even more traction with pushing this bill through to ban Congress and presidents and elected officials from owning or creating cryptocurrencies, as well as, remember, from being banned from owning stocks, which has been an expectation on this channel for a long time since we saw them do the exact same thing with the Fed officials at the prior top, okay? They always frame it as if they're doing it for ethical reasons, when in fact all they're doing is letting them and the friends and their family out at the top before we enter the big bear market. So that too is weird. And it gets even weirder to me because if you listen to the Fed, we've got strong and resilient, stable, healthy, and we're at or near full employment levels, okay? Meanwhile, Amazon just cut 10% of its corporate workforce. And it wasn't just Amazon, okay? There's a big list here of a bunch of these companies. Many of them are slashing at rates not seen since the GFC. So I think that's weird that not only is this going on, it's occurring at a time when the government is shut down. They're not only not letting the jobs data out now, okay, right as this is going on, but they've also decided to lose 20% of the jobs data. Again, I make the case that's kind of weird. I think that's kind of suspect, to be completely honest with you. And it gets even weirder for me personally, because I keep seeing people seeing things like this and challenging it by saying, well, it's okay, Camel, productivity is not going to go down, GDP is not going to be impacted, because they're replacing them with robots. So AI, robots can just do the human's job and everything's going to be fine, right? Productivity is not going to go down. But this to me seems like a very low IQ argument, okay? If we are sacking a bunch of humans and putting them at home with no job, no income, no money, okay, those humans still need feeding and clothing and heating their houses. They still got to service their debts and their mortgages and everything else, okay? Those people need money. And now they don't have any money. So it's all very well saying, yeah, well, AI is just revolutionizing production. AI robots are going to, pack all the Amazon warehouse boxes up and blah, blah, blah. Who's going to order stuff off Amazon when you haven't got a job and no income, right? Like, I just don't think it makes sense. I think it's very weird that people have kind of been kneeling down and bowing down to their god, which is AI, when realistically, it's obviously going to do more harm than good in the short term, right? Long term, maybe after everyone's got UBI and everyone will eat the bugs and own nothing and be happy, then AI can go on and run these factories and whatever, okay? But for now, in the short term, how is laying off 10% of Amazon going to manifest as increased productivity in the short term, right? It's just like not realistic. I think it's just so weird that all of this, like I said, is occurring against the government closing down, refusing to release data. They're not letting us have a CPI data next month either, remember? And then they're losing the jobs data, right? Like, is it not me? I don't know. I said this a lot of times. I smell a rat, okay? So then last but not least, let's take a look at a few charts. I think we've already done Bitcoin to death, okay? Again, left translation is my base case here, as is the rest of this 4-year cycle playing out in 2 weekly cycles like this. And of course, each weekly cycle should be broken up by about 3.5 daily cycles, aka 2 106-day cycles. The question for me is, does it occur to a lower high, as I said, or to a higher high? We should find out soon enough. The stock market, again, this is unprecedented. This is just absolutely crazy, right? Like, we're resetting daily and weekly cycles in one candle of 3%. And before that, there's just no other 3% pullbacks, right? 3% if you're lucky. The rest of them are like 2% pullbacks. And if you don't understand how rare this is, go back before the April lows and see how many of these daily cycles or weekly cycles are reset in one candle, okay? Spoiler alert, none. Absolutely none of them are reset in one candle. You also won't find a weekly cycle that's reset in 3% or less, okay? You won't find that. And that is because this is ridiculously unprecedented. This is not just sort of rare strength or, early days in a bull market. This is final grand finale stuff. Like I said, you cannot find price action like this before this April low. You can't find cycles resetting in a single daily candle like that with only 3%. This is unprecedented action, and it's probably going to steepen from here for a little while longer. But remember, that 4-year cycle low is due, okay? And to say it's not going to show up is, again, I think weird. I think it's weird. If we take a look at gold, gold appears to be topped, at least for the short term here, I would say. Now, I don't know if this is top for the weekly cycle or the 4-year cycle low. I'm not entirely sure yet. I think it's too early to tell. What we'll do is what we always do here, which is wait for a daily cycle low. It should show up any day now, okay? Get a counter trend bounce and then either let ourselves out slightly higher up, or we get this and that daily cycle resolves to another higher high, and that will tell us the weekly cycle is yet to top. But I think at the moment, again, the read is pretty clear. This looks topped for the intermediate cycle at the least right now, so it's just a case of finding a spot to let ourselves out at. The read is very clear for the stock market. This is unprecedented, a massive blow off top moment, and it's probably going to continue for a little while longer. Bitcoin, again, binary, okay, isn't it? It's just, is it left translating to a new all-time high or to a lower high? Despite the vibe being extremely weird, despite a lot of what's happening in markets being extremely weird and unprecedented, despite a lot of suspect behavior from the leaders of this world, at least the charts are pretty simple for now, which means we can continue to stay on the right side of the trade regardless of what happens. I am looking for opportunities. I got my eye on a few things, so I'll share that with the level 3 members as soon as I actually see something quantifiable. Other than that, if you're a Slice Crew member, look out for a ticker request video coming for you guys. And until next time, I'm your boy Camel. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel